they'll do a Wachuma
Oh
retreat and
God.
then they're like,
Uh,
I'm not healed yet. You're like, oh,
Please
okay.
don't start with ayahuasca. Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And I'm happy to have today from Peru, Rose Covenant. Hello, Rose.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. We had quite a start, and I was hoping for the meditation on the beginning, but maybe we can end on a small goodbye meditation.
Either way.
I'd like to start the podcast with giving people a chance to give a small introduction so people get to know you, what you do, what's your background. So if you please, couple of minutes to say hello to the audience and just introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So I'm Rose Covenant. I'm a somatic architect. And basically, I help people who are in the process of awakening, elevating their consciousness, growing, healing, whatever word we might use for getting to know ourselves better. And when we start that journey, all of the old stuff comes up, old trauma comes up, old patterns come up. So I help people to reconnect emotionally, mentally, physiologically, energetically between the mind and body to come more into their wholeness, more into their ability to create a life that they love, not one that just looks really great on paper. So, my background, I am currently traveling the world. I am a digital nomad. I've been traveling for 3.5 years. Before that, I worked in international public health. So, I have a background in health and behavior change, and I spent half of a decade living and working in West Africa. So I've seen a lot of different parts of the world and had the opportunity to really, in the last 4 or 5 years, create the life that I wanted to live. So I'm currently in Peru in the Sacred Valley, helping people to heal their deepest trauma and shine their brightest light. So that's me.
Wow. I think we can finish the podcast right here. And it's a mega hit. That's That's basically the definition of the life that every second person who is somewhere between 16 and 32 desperately want to have. Basically, this is the pot of gold, the end of the rainbow.
I
I
help
just
people
pray,
activate into more unicorn energy and live the life they want.
I just pray to God that there is some little soul to somewhere along that traveling, lost suitcase, I don't know, anything, give it to us. Otherwise, I'm going to cry. It's amazing. It's amazing. And of course, you deserve it. And of course, you made it happen. I guess there were a lot of steps of courage on the way, and I'm sure it just didn't fly into your lap. And as you said, you have to want to make it. And being
Mhm,
there, making it real, I'm sure it just is not all that easy. So maybe
mhm,
say a couple of words to all our listeners who dream to have the same kind of a life, being afraid of making the first step, being afraid of going out. I mean, you're meeting a lot of fellow travelers, so it's not only, I guess, you, it's like a community of travelers. So maybe give some words of encouragement before we get into details
mm.
or
Anything
not.
that or not. Stay where you are. No, anything that you want to create, you can create. It's always on the other side of fear. It's always on the other side of doubt. And I think it's easy to say that, to be like, if you can dream it, you can create it. And I listen to a fair amount of channelers, probably a lot of people here do as well. And I think there can be this disconnect between this like spiritual knowing, this connection with your higher self, with your soul, spirit, God, universe, XYZ word, that you can create anything you want. And then living in the constriction of a 3D humanness of like, yeah, but I'm scared to quit my job. I'm scared to quit my career, leave my partner, get on a plane, whatever that is. And the journey, in my experience, is marrying both of those things. Because the interesting thing for me about living this life, which is objectively really awesome, is for the first couple years of it, I wasn't really enjoying it. Like, I checked the box and I was doing it, but I was actually quite lonely and pretty dissatisfied, even though like my life looked amazing on the outside. And so my best advice is like the real journey is that inner work, and the external world you can shift and bend to create whatever you want. But if you haven't done that inner work to find the joy and happiness within you, even if you shift the external circumstances and start traveling full time, it doesn't mean that you'll have the feeling you think you're going to feel. I don't know if that was
Yeah,
as
yeah,
uplifting you were hoping, Philip.
even more to me, but I'm an old guy, so yeah. Sounds perfect because you gave me a question which I would have not asked otherwise. But thank you so much. You laid the groundwork for a little bit controversial question because you said, although you were living your best life, you were not entirely happy until you basically found yourself and came in harmony. And I've noticed watching on Instagram and whatnot, a lot of those digital nomads, a lot of your fellow travelers, and it looks
Yeah.
very glossy, right? It looks very pretty and punchy and sexy and bikini, whatever. And I always I'm a professional photographer for a lot of years, and I know how
Hmm.
hard it is to make good pictures. And I have a couple of friends who basically live that kind of a life. And I know how many hours they spend for the perfect pose, the waterfall, the palms, and and
Yeah.
their day so often is not spiritual. It's basically location hunting and yeah, you know what I mean? So would you say a couple of words about this whole new gigantic field on the internet,
Mm.
whereas posing spirituality or spiritual posing versus is that okay if I say it out loud
Yeah.
versus people who do the work and find peace and just do their thing.
Mm. Yeah, there's spiritual posing. There's also spiritual bypassing, which maybe that's even a buzzword now. It's very easy to make your life look beautiful on the outside, whether you're a digital nomad and you're spending hours taking photos, or you're living a 9 to 5 life and you take your vacations and you spend hours taking photos. It's very easy to create an external mask of happiness. And it's also really sad. There are a lot of people, especially like here, I'm in the Sacred Valley. There's a lot of spiritual seekers here. And there's a mix of people who are doing the work. Like I work with clients to do the work. I also do the work every week. Like I am still in it because I'm still alive and there's still always stuff to expand and grow through. And then on the other side, there's this, as you called it, spiritual posing of like, I'm going to take a picture of myself with this altar of cacao beans, with these crystals and these roses. And it's not that crystals and roses mean you're not spiritual. And I think just unpacking at first the word spiritual, like there aren't spiritual and not spiritual people. Everyone is a part of spirit. Some of us are just more aware of it or more actively seeking it, let's say, and allowing people to have their own experience. Because for some people, maybe going to one Reiki, breathwork, sound healing adventure with a bunch of crystals, and they do that once a quarter and they're like, "Okay, I'm doing the work, I'm tuning in." And maybe for them that's where they are on their journey and that's a perfect amount of doing the work, but the difference between coming into communion with yourself moment by moment, it's hard. It's not easy because we have all of this conditioning from life, society, family, past, da, da, da. And I think we can have this perception that if you're spiritual, like you're on the top of a mountain, you're just meditating all day, you're taking gorgeous photos, the wind is just blowing your hair in the right way. And the reality of being an awakening soul, if you will, in this human experience is it's messy. And sometimes it's beautiful and you can feel the energy and you're in beautiful places and it's amazing. And sometimes, I had a cry this morning. I was like, oh, look, something's triggering from my human experience. So I think when we have this idea of what spirituality is and how you're supposed to look and how you're supposed to feel, you're supposed to meditate 8 hours a day and then do yoga the other 8 hours a day and then just be a breatharian and take in the energy of the earth and have this perfect body and this perfect, like, it's not about perfection. The real journey of evolution for me is to marry that like messiness of being human with the knowing of what is true. And that's something that we know moment by moment. I see the no. You disagree?
No,
Give
this
it to
is the most beautiful moment of this year already. I have to tell you, I could cry right now. I'm holding back my tears because I'm in this spiritual business, right? For
yeah.
may more than 35 years now. And I've seen so many things come and go. I don't say I'm the wise old elf, but yeah, I've been around. And you
Mhm,
see those patterns. And when you're long enough doing a thing in this world, you just, you know, I know things come back and fashion comes back and things like that. But there's a lot of my friends in my age who've, post hippie started, who been quite disappointed the last couple of years looking at spiritual posing, right? And been really disappointed. We love that people care, and I'm with you. I'm totally fine if you go once a month and do a Reiki or whatever, and wear a shirt with all kind of colors, and that's your spiritual thing. Absolute, right? But the posing is a different quality, right? This is
mhm,
very different. It's this very different thing. Faith to fake faith, right? Gibberish. That's a complete different kind of a thing. And there's been a lot going on the last couple of years. And I start to feel, talking to you right now, maybe we come full circle. Maybe we just have to wait long enough. And people start to understand. You said such a beautiful word. It's messy. It's hard. You know, cleaning up the inner garbage is every, everything but beautiful, my friend.
and I think in to to speak with love and compassion on the spiritual posers, to my mind, I don't I don't think it's probably conscious. I don't think it's a conscious choice to present that way. I think it's an attempt to present authenticity through a lens that's not as awake or not as clean as it could be. So some of the way that I like to look at
Mm,
doing the inner work is it's like,
yeah,
okay, we have these glasses and our intention is to clear the lens, right? We have childhood trauma, paints a tiger on the lens. So everything that we look at, we're like, but what if there's a tiger? Okay, the tiger happened 30 years ago, but our mind, our body, our energy, our nervous system is still conditioned to be like, but what if there's a tiger? And so it's cleaning up the tigers so that we can see clearly. So for people who are in that space of like, I'm going to spend 3 hours getting the perfect yoga, with me and the sun and the waterfall and it's can be that they are in their highest expression that's available to them at that moment.
no, I'm coming to terms with it. Listening to people like you, I'm making a huge peace right now. Right where I was sitting the last 15 minutes, I'm making peace with the world and peace with the universe. You have no idea. You've given me such a tremendous amount of peace in the heart. Because as long as people like me, and there are a lot of them, by the way, know that there are people like you who have come to understand that there is something above the popes. Everything is fine. I mean, in my time, there were posers. Don't worry. I mean, they didn't have Instagram, they didn't have anything, but they were, they were also coming in white linen trousers and white linen things, that little golden thing in the hair, like, and then they came to my meditation classes, and we're sitting there in a perfect position. And it's okay. We always had posers, but the balance is important. I don't have a problem with the posers as long as there are people who are waking up, who are going to a deeper level and keeping the flame going on. And most probably, maybe in 20, 30 years, you'll be sitting and making a podcast with someone, And this has to move on, and this is all we care for. uh, Caring to give spirituality to my kids, to give it to the next generation. And I did what I could, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple more years on this earth, God willing. But the years where I can really move and push and build the mountains, that's it's done deal. So I'm so
Yeah.
happy to hear people like you that they're moving it on. So thank you so much for this conversation so far. It was really lightened lightened me
Yeah.
up. Now,
Well, I think there's also, if I can add, there's in the last, let's say from 2020, a lot of people have had experiences working with different people on the internet. And I think this is where some of this comes into play because I think a lot of people who are deeply seeking. So for me, I had done a lot of inner work. I had done talk therapy. I had recovered from chronic pain. I was already in the mind body space. And it just felt like I couldn't find a mentor, coach, therapist, practitioner, healer, whatever person who could take me to a deeper level because I'd had all the tools. It's like, okay, I can help other people do this, but I also need someone to hold the space so that I can fall apart, right? Because that that's the dance of deeper healing. It's finding safety. And one of the big things about like healing and trauma, we internalize trauma when we're not seen and supported when something bad happens, basically. And so finding that support that you need to be able to go deeper. And I think so many people have had the experience in the last 4 years of working with people who themselves had done a lot of deep work and are waking up exponentially, and working with people who maybe hadn't done a lot of deep work. And so a lot of people are feeling really disillusioned with the space, with the healing space, because you've been to all these people. You're like, am I happy yet? Am I healed yet? Am I having healthy relationships yet? Like, what the hell? Am I living my life purpose yet? And I just want to voice that because that was my experience as well until I found someone who literally I met this woman through a series of synchronicities. And I had gotten triggered and ended up talking to her. And I was like, I could feel the energy in my hands when I was talking to her. I was like, I can feel it now, actually. I can feel this energy. And I was like, I want to work with you. And she's like, oh, this is what I do. I was like, I don't care what you do. Like, you can tell me you take a cat and hold it above my head. I don't care. Like, whatever you did to be the energy you're in, I want to do that. And I think that is a piece that's important to come back to, even if you're someone who's listening and you've been disillusioned. Where you're like, well, I did this breath work and I did this, that, and the other thing, and I still don't feel like I'm enjoying my life, even if I have all the external things that I'm supposed to have. And so if that's you, just encouraging you to continue the journey. Like, don't give up. Because here's the other sneaky thing about awakening that no one tells you. You can't go back. You can't put your head back in the sand. You can't become less aware. Like, maybe you can Netflix binge for a couple days and, like, break,
I mean, the world gave you the Matrix movie just to point that out. I mean, it was the only reason it was there. So just
right?
a warning, once you take the
Mhm.
pill, it's done deal.
So keep going. Don't get stuck in the messy point when you're waking up and you're just like, "Oh, this is terrible. I'm aware of everything." And you're beating yourself up because now you notice the patterns. Like, at first, you're blissfully unaware. You start to wake up or do the healing work or growth work or expansion work, whatever you call it. And then there's this tipping point where you start to be able to see all of your stuff as it comes up. And for some people, we can get stuck there. And then we're judging ourselves for, oh, I'm repeating this toxic relationship pattern, or I'm repeating this over pleasing, over giving, overthinking, underfeeling, da da da. And it's finding whatever path for you. Like, for some people, it's a coach or a mentor. For others, it's yoga or sound healing or different talk, whatever your thing is, find your thing is really the message. Like, search your heart, find your thing, and keep going.
I don't know why, but you're always giving me the next answer, the next question on the silver platter. I don't know how you do it. This is the most easy podcast I had for a long time because I want to really ask you, because who else, if I have you sitting in front of me, what would you've been to Europe, you said you've been to Africa, you've been to South America, you are in South America. So you've been places. And just very simple, let's keep it on the upper level. Are there cultural approaches towards spirituality? Is it like, are you the person who sees the universal approach, or you think that an African community approaches spirituality different than in South American community? Just tell me all your observations. I'll take whatever you give me.
Great. Side note, I did confirm to move my meeting half an hour, so I'm free on time.
Oh, that's
Sorry. Edit note. That's a great question about different approaches to spirituality. Hmm.
you've even been in Croatia, I think. And
Yeah.
so
The
so it's
Croatia, Israel, Jerusalem. Yeah. I've been
there.
to a lot of places. For me in my own internal path, there is only oneness, right? There's no real separation. All separation is illusion. Different cultures have different degrees of that truth. So in Western culture, we're like, right, life is here, life and work and money and commuting and getting on the metro. This is life. And then we have spirituality. We go to church, we go to a yoga class, we go to the top of a mountain, and that is spirituality. We do our Headspace app 15 minutes a day. We're like, okay. And then we go to life. And they're two very different things. In a lot of different cultures that have deeper roots. So, in many West African cultures, in here in Peru, it's not so divided. There's not this sense of, okay, this is spirituality and then this is life, and they're two completely separate things. So here, the name of the mountain's gods is the Apus, right? And so there's this consciousness, there's talk of Mother Earth. Here, the word they use is Pachamama. And so it's more integrated into existence. There's not such a stark contrast that we have in the West. So a lot of people from the West come here. This is this is a little gauche to say, but one of the towns here, one of the local expats who's been here for years, he's like, "This is basically the ER mental hospital of Westerners who've given up on Western medicine and come here for the spiritual path." And then a lot of people here, plant medicine is very common. So they'll do an ayahuasca retreat, they'll do a Wachuma
Oh
retreat, and
God.
then they're like, "I'm
Uh,
not healed yet." You're like, "Oh,
Please
okay."
don't start with ayahuasca. I'm going nuts
No,
here.
yes. Let me the public service announcement. If you are just doing your healing work and you are going through some heavy stuff, don't start with ayahuasca. Don't start.
Kids,
Please don't.
listen to that.
Yeah. So I think this is also just a deeper signal of this Western perspective of I want to do it fast. I want the most efficient route. I want to
Course.
kill an injection, an adjustment, like I want to go. I talked to someone we were considering doing some work together, and they were like, "Well, I went on to ayahuasca retreat. Like, why am I not healed? Why am I still completely dissociated and numb?" And I was like, "So it's not a full journey." And not to speak against plant medicine, everyone has their own journey, and for some people, there's that can be very powerful for them in a moment. But that it going on a plant journey or any of these sort of up jumping over here, even if it's a super deep sound bath, whatever it is, it's like you're going to the island of consciousness. That's great. I love that you've been there. Now you have to do the actual work, which is to integrate and build the bridge to be there moment by moment because spirituality is not something that we visit and then we come back to our life. It's integrating everything that's happening. And in different cultures in the world, we have different degrees of separation. And I would say in the
Yes,
West, we have the most extreme degree of separation.
right. 100% whatever you say anyway, but
Ayahuasca,
I
don't start there.
yes, yes, you did. I don't know how many evenings I spent listening to ayahuasca trips from friends. I
The
really
guy's
can't
got
take it anymore.
illuminated monkey, and he told me that and I think plant medicine as well. Like people have these beautiful experiences of, I spoke with my mother, I spoke with my grandmother, I spoke with people who are on the other side. And the piece that we neglect is that, like, okay, we're all oneness. You can just do that. You can develop your intuition. You can develop your ability to hear. You can develop your ability to see and interpret the signs of the universe and be in communion with someone who's passed, be in communion with someone who's here. Like, we don't need these external things. And that's part of the path as well. Like, coming back to yourself and realizing that you are part of universe, God, spirit, the great Ooba Dooba in the sky, whatever your thing is, and that you can tap in fully in any moment of time. You don't need a church or a yoga class or a breath work or a whatever. All of those things are beautiful tools to be able to teach you how to reconnect. But when you are fully reconnected and you can hear spirit, you can hear your higher self, you can hear your soul, it doesn't it shifts the journey from this, like, seeking, I need this thing, I need a master, a guru, a technique, a tool, a blah, like a magic bullet into, okay, this is really just a journey of coming back and listening to myself moment by moment. And also knowing that we're human and sometimes we're going to be like, Is it the most aligned thing for me to watch 9 hours of Netflix right now? No, go for a walk." And we're like, "Sorry, soul. I'm gonna watch 9 hours of Netflix," and that's also okay.
Okay.
So it's not this, like, puritanical perfectionist, like, laying perfection over it is just another Western way that we create separation. Like, "Well, I'm not completely perfect, so I'm not quite worthy yet. I'm not quite lovable yet. I'm not quite safe yet." And that just keeps us in the illusion of continuing to, like, fight against ourselves.
And the fun part is that those people who understand the principle and use it in a horrible way the best, they make the most money.
Mm.
That's the fun part of it. Because once you have patients or people you work with and you suggest the real work, yeah, some of them stay, some lucky. But if you look at the guys who preach the separation and now 9 o'clock you'll get enlightened and not and 30 we finish, they are the ones who make the big bucks, and that's another madness of the reality. But this has been there since my time and since every time, and most probably we're gonna have many more years of this uh, insanity that the Westerns have it so put everything in its own compartments and not just integrated into life. I am
Mm.
totally with you. And just a small story: I had a wonderful African dance workshop with a great dancer. It was in Europe, but he was and he tried to explain the basic rhythms and what they mean and all of this. It was wonderful. And he told that in his tribe, every man gets an initiation. There's a medicine man, and that he kind of figures out in some spiritual way the trigger for each and every man going for the ceremony. What is his trigger to connect with the higher beings? And some have a certain melody, and some have a certain ancestor's voice or something. And one guy had to smell a goat milk. That was his trigger. That was his trigger. And I don't know, this story is so
Love it.
lovely. And yes, it is, when you try to tell this to a Westerner, that the pathways and in between and the links we create for generations or for ancestors and the stuff we build, the whole network around us is so much wider and more complex
Mm,
than, that's what we all talk about. So thank you for for enlightening us on that. So the therapy work you do, we talked about as the big question that my generation, that me, is very into it: online versus live, right?
mm.
The quality of these is real spiritual work done hands on, feel, smell each other. You know, I'm amazed at how many people work online and does it work, and I can see it's working and it's a valuable thing, but
Mm.
I'm still on the fence. So give me your idea about
Yeah. So the most important thing in working with another human is how deep they've gone themselves. That's in my mind the most important thing. Like how deep have they gone themselves? How committed are they to their journey, to their healing, to continue to unpacking and for lack of a better word, clarifying their energy. Like taking the tigers off of their glasses and seeing clearly and being able to tune in and tap in to their wisdom, the wisdom of source, collective consciousness, the truth, if you will. So when you are with someone virtually in person who has done their work and continues to do it because we're humans, there's no done, unfortunately. When you are in that energy, that's something that you can feel when you're in person or when you're not in person. So, I would ask you, you've mentioned like, "Oh, this is the easiest podcast because it's in flow." Can you feel my energy?
I hope so.
Yeah. So, I think this comes up to another like the idea of separation and the idea of wholeness. We know enough about like quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement. The woo-woo spiritualness has gone all the way around to like, oh, now it actually we have science to prove it in quantum physics that everything is ultimately energy and connected. And so my mentor, I work with her usually remotely, and once a quarter I do some work with her in person. Do I love the in-person work? Yeah, of course. Cuz I love having a coffee and having lunch and talking. I love that. At the same time, the work that we do, that I do with her and that I do with clients, it's the same depth of work, whether it's online or whether it's in person. Because ultimately, I'm not doing anything to them, right? Like, I'm holding the space and providing them the guidance to be able to go back to the most tender, deepest hurts that they have that are still living on in their energy field, that they're still holding on subconsciously, they're holding on in their nervous system, they're holding on energetically. However, whatever word lands for you, they're going there. They're bringing the love and light. They're bringing the safety. They're dissolving that ice in their energetic field, if you will. And I'm holding the energy for that with them, but they're doing that. Is it nice to be in person? Of course, it's lovely to be in person, but it's not required. The most important thing is finding someone you feel safe with, you feel seen, you feel heard, you feel understood, that they've done their work and they're holding space for you and they're not projecting their stuff on you. They're facilitating your connection.
You have a lot of wishes. You have a high list.
Yeah, well, I think we deserve that. Like, for me and the work that I've done, for me to find someone who could hold me was a lot. And when I find clients, pretty much everyone has the same story. Oh, well, I've tried talk therapy, I've tried EMDR, I've tried this, that, and the other thing. And it is about the method. Like, I've developed a method, the recalibration effect, and it's a combination of somatic work, inner parts work, so inner child and higher self connecting, and energetics as well, nervous system regulation. The method is important, but what's more important is that I've done my work and continue to do so. So when I can hold space for someone, that they can feel like they can fall apart. Like I can help them put themselves back together. And if it's in person or remotely, it's not so important.
I'll take it for the moment because we don't have 5 hours. I'm not burning to give like a very long reply to that, but I'm keeping it inside of me, and let's see how it all develops. But yeah, I get what you say. I understand what you say, and I take what you say. Yes, to all of it in a way, and the rest I keep to myself.
That's fair enough. There's a difference in the level of container that someone is willing to put themselves in. So I'm starting to do in-person work as well. I'll be doing a retreat in Luxor in Egypt in October of this year. And that is it it's a condensed period of work. It's 1 week,
Let's let's
right?
talk once you have done a couple of those things, and then let's talk again. And maybe the reply might shift a little bit. Maybe it might shift. But I get what you say, and maybe it really the starting point. You said something valuable again. That maybe the starting point is exactly what is here the issue, right? If you look at certain starting points and certain expectation, most probably that online thing is super valuable, and why not? As you said, I don't do the work for you. You do the work. I'm just here to, or you and whatever, hold the container. I get all of this, and I'm with you. Just one micro sentence, I'll tell you, and then we come to the next question. Again, you gave me the next question, but this is now how our mechanic works. But I just let me tell you this one thing. So just as super short. Let's say I teach meditation groups for more than 30 years now, right? Many different countries, many different ways. And I've come to really question myself if people learn that meditation from me, is that the great spiritual thing that I'm giving? Or so many times after the workshop is finished, a couple of people stay, go for a beer. Sometimes I'm with them, sometimes they go alone. And I've really come honestly to question, is this the moment, the beer after, or my stupid workshop? So this is, this is where I am. This is my point. But okay,
Yeah.
you know, okay, let's come to the next question. And because you started telling us about your method, your work, and I'm super intrigued. Let's end this podcast. We have 15 minutes more or so to tell us a bit about what you have developed, to use the word. And so I want to know, what have you developed? What is the mechanics? What is your thinking? Yeah, tell us about this. I'm super interested to learn.
Yeah, happy to share. So if we look at the process of healing, awakening, expanding, whatever journey we're wanting to be on. For most of us, it starts out because we want to be happy. We want to feel happy, right? Moment to moment. If you ask somebody what they want, happiness, joy, abundance, peace. If they want abundance, it's because they want to feel happy and free. And so when we are first on that journey, it starts with awareness. We start to become aware, oh, these are subconscious patterns. Oh, I'm getting triggered. Oh, when something happened, I can feel in my body that I'm not reacting to this moment. I'm reacting to something old. I'm carrying a lot of emotional charge. So we start unpacking that in some way, right? Maybe we start journaling, maybe we go to therapy, maybe we start meditating. We start that self inquiry if we're on this expansive journey, let's say. I used to call it a healing journey, but we're not broken, right? We're never broken. So our expansive growing journey. And so when we're seeing all of these patterns of behavior, patterns of belief. So for me, a big one was around men. I was staying in these unfulfilling relationships. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to be alone. I knew this was because of stuff in my childhood, stuff with my mom. I could see it, but I couldn't stop it. or being a high achiever, right? I learned in childhood, as so many of us do, if I behave in a certain way and get good grades and da 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 da, then I'll be getting praise. And so we put all this pressure on ourselves. So we come to a point where we have baked in all of these survival tactics that we got as children. We've baked them into an identity. We think, oh, I'm an anxious person. I'm an overachiever. I'm a this, that, or the other thing. So the work that I do inside of the recalibration effect is essentially to help people to peel back those layers of what they've taken on of as identity, but are actually survival patterns. No one is an anxious person. No one is just attracting toxic relationships. No one is overgiving or people pleasing or these are not parts of our nature. These are survival energies and survival patterns we've taken on because at some time in life, we learned that that was the best thing subconsciously to help us survive. So, inside of the recalibration effect, it is about going to the emotional roots of why do we have those behaviors? Why are we staying in unfulfilling relationships or toxic relationships? Why are we boundaryless? Why are we um, giving all of our power away? There's reasons why. And the roots of those things, very often in childhood, sometimes intergenerational, more and more common intergenerational, because we seemingly are the generation who is starting to step up and heal the next layer of that. And so the work that I do with clients is to be able to get to the emotional energy, that charge that's still in the body. Maybe it's a habit of constricting the heart. Maybe it's fear to speak, which often shows up in the throat. Maybe it's in the stomach, right? We hold on to these survival patterns and they're deeply wired into our mind, into our body, into our nervous system, into our energetic patterns and templates. So I help people to find those roots. And then that's where the mix of somatic inner parts work and the energetic piece comes in. So basically, how sessions work are we find what's happening in the moment, and that'll always lead us to what is that survival energy that's still in the body, going back into that time, using the body as a portal to go back and to connect with the hurt part of you that's there. Because survival energy is just trying to keep often a hurt inner child safe. And so by then releasing the energy and reprogramming the thought that that little child made. So let's say when you were 3, you heard your parents yelling at each other and you created this belief that it was your fault and the world was unsafe. So now subconsciously, you've been playing out that pattern all your life. When we play out a pattern, we get more and more evidence. See, not worthy. See, the world is unsafe. So when you go back to the root of that and you essentially help that 3-year-old shift the belief into what is the truth, that you're safe, that you're supported, that the world is safe, then that allows that survival mechanism that has been triggering for the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years to start to soften. And so it's about going back to those emotional roots and healing those places. And that is not just it's not just in the mind, it's not just in the body, it's also in your energy, these patterns and habits that we've had. And then that starts to break down the survival energy as an identity, and you get to recreate that identity from a place of connection and truth, that you are safe, that you are worthy, that you are lovable, that you are deserving of love. And when you make a life from that place, everything in your life will either rise to meet you or it will fall away. And that is scary and hard. And so supporting someone to go through that journey of healing the deeper layers, rewiring your brain and nervous system, your energy to be more in alignment. Ultimately, this is a place of coming into alignment with your truth again and again. And then it's supporting what happens in life. I've had clients leave jobs. I've had them leave fiancés and then meet a soulmate and get married a year later, right? It's about having the courage and the internal safety created, looping all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, like making those courageous steps to create the life that you want. Maybe it's traveling, maybe it's something else, maybe it's creating a business. That journey starts from healing the deep wounds that are causing you to have that fear. It's not always about, oh, I have fear and I need to push through it. Why is that fear there? Do you feel supported enough, stable enough, loved enough, worthy enough to have the life that you want? And that's why sometimes, even when we make the big moves, when we have the life that we want, like I was living my dream life for a couple years before I was actually enjoying it, because there was part of me that had such a strong survival pattern of I don't deserve happiness and it's unsafe because the other shoe is going to drop. And so it's safer for me to feel a little bit unsatisfied because then when the shoe drops, boom, I'll be ready. Okay, that doesn't work. Newsflash, doesn't work. And just a habit, just a long ingrained lifelong habit of looking for a problem to solve. I'm great at solving problems, looking for a problem to solve. And so these patterns, sometimes we can easily see them. And sometimes they're so insidious because they're so baked into the way that we've been living so long, we identify with them. And so, in part, I call myself the somatic architect because it's about taking off all of those layers and rebuilding from the foundation up. Who do you want to be? What do you want to create? Do you want to create a life from love and connection and happiness? What does that look like? What does that mean? And it's different for every single person. But when you've been living in some level of survival mode for all of your life until your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and now you're going to switch that identity to build a life out of love, a lot of things are going to change. And that is a beautiful, messy, messy process.
This could be wonderful ending of the podcast, but I have to resist and just quick ask and destroy the emotional, wonderful ending. It has to happen. And this is mainly a conversational thing, or is it energy work, or it's just basically a little parts from everywhere, and you tune it for each and every client. Some is more breathing, some more body, some more talking. Is this like a patchwork that you create for each individual client, or you have a very well developed structure, basically one bill fits all kind of a thing?
Hmm. I have an umbrella structure and a lot of different tools and techniques in the toolkit. How they're applied depends on each individual person and where they are in their journey. So if
Because
I say to someone, okay, ask your higher self to drop in front of your eyes the image of you when you first held this energy, and this person has never heard any of those words before, that's not going to work. So it really is about for each individual person
Mhm.
finding where they are and speaking to them in the words and language and vibration that they have access to at that moment to get to the place where they're in that deeper part of the work.
Because it comes to my last question, do you already, maybe I don't know it, but are you doing it or planning to teach your method to others? Are you building new therapies based on your method? Are you doing it, or you're in the process, or you haven't thought about it? How is this going on?
Mm. At this moment, my focus is working with clients one on one and doing some in person work as well, which I did a bit last year in London, and that was lovely. So that's my focus for the time being. We'll see what evolves in time. The thing that I've noticed in being around practitioners and being in retreat space in particular is around working with trauma. So I'm someone who's extremely lucky to have healed a lot of trauma, which means I've experienced a lot of trauma. And the thing that I would invite and potentially in some years will be more around that trauma informed piece. Because so many of us go into healing spaces. And this is why I stopped going into healing spaces, actually. I was told, oh, all of you is welcome here. All of your emotions were welcome here. and then multiple times was told, like, "I'm processing right. You're not supposed to feel anger now. You're supposed to feel anger in 2 songs. I'm sorry." What?
How
Like,
dare you? How
an
dare
emotion,
you?
right? Someone
Please.
tugging at my blanket, "Shh, be quiet." I'm like, "Wow." So, I'm not working with practitioners yet. I think that could happen in the future, but the trauma-informed piece is such a big thing because when we look at statistics of how many people have, we've all experienced little t trauma, right? Everyone, like feeling unloved, feeling unsafe in a moment. Like even as a baby, when you depress the bed, the baby's head goes back and it gives them a little bit of that, like, but a lot more people than we think of have experienced capital T trauma. And so making healing spaces that are equipped to support people when stuff comes up is really important to me and is something that is very important in my work, and potentially working with other providers, coaches, healers in the future will be a part as well.
Well, then this is now the not so dramatic and emotional ending of this podcast. First of all, from a personal note, one more time, I thank you from the deepest bottom of my heart. You said so many things I wanted to hear for a really long time. You cannot imagine, because I care deeply for spiritual development in the world and society. I just want this world to be a more bright, better, lighter place. And I so much care and wish a lot of people in every generation to get on the path, the messy path, and to walk it and to keep walking it. And we all ultimately will discover same roadblocks and, same moments of light at different points. And it's so good to know that the path is alive from, and maybe in some years you will understand how good it feels to know that, things move forward. So this was a great, really deeply great, satisfying conversation. And I hope you inspire a lot of people to do the dirty work because
Do the
because
dirty
that
work. Yeah. Spiritual
that's
intention. Get the gloves, you know,
yeah,
you
that's
do what
the
you gotta
that's
do.
the that's where the pain is hiding, and this is where the light comes up.
Yeah, I'd be happy to offer a short micro meditation if that feels aligned for you.
That's the ending. I'll give you now the floor for a micro meditation. I'm saying goodbye already. Thank you one more time, and we now everybody's welcome to join in and follow your guidance for the last couple of seconds.
Amazing. So, most important thing, everything is an invitation. So, if you want to come on this journey, you're welcome. If you don't, you're welcome to not. I'm going to offer things like closing your eyes, taking some breaths, doing some visualizations. Just follow your heart and do what's aligned for you. You can always come back to just a hand on the heart and focus on your breath. So, if it feels aligned for you, you can place one hand on your heart, one hand on your low belly, or you can place both hands, palms face up in your lap. And we're going to do one of my most favorite exercises, which is getting a message from your future self. So just start by taking a few deep breaths, feeling your feet on the floor, just bringing yourself present in this moment, letting go of any thoughts, any judgment, any to do lists, just bringing yourself fully here. And if it feels good for you, you can set an intention to reach out to yourself 1 year, 5 years in the future, whatever feels right for you. And set an intention. And I'm going to count down from 10. And when I get to 1, you will receive a message, clear guidance from that future self. If you have any questions, you can put those out in the intention, or you can just intend to hear whatever comes through for you. It might be words, it might be a lot of words, it might be a thought, a feeling, it might be nothing at all, just being open to whatever comes. And dropping your consciousness into your heart space, imagining all of your energy in your heart, setting this intention that when I count back from 10, you'll receive this guidance from this future version of yourself. In 10, taking an even deeper breath. 9, 8, starting to feel this connection. 7, 6, coming back to the present moment in your heart. 5, knowing that you'll receive whatever guidance you need. 4, 3, an even deeper breath. 2, and preparing to receive this guidance from your future self. And 1, just listen. Whenever you're ready in your own time, taking a deep breath into your heart, sending yourself some love and gratitude. When you're ready, you can wiggle your fingers and toes, open your eyes, jot down that guidance, that message, and come back to it when you need it.
Thank you.